Hello Internet! It's time for another Wednesday serial. Let's talk some comics. So first up is Batman Eternal, where we get to see Batman go to Japan to try to track down the money trail of the Falcone estate. And we're going to get a little touch of Batman Incorporated in Japan. You get to see a whole bunch of things come together, and there's an awesome play with Catwoman in here, and this is a really interesting issue, and it is very dynamic, and it's really interesting for me to see John Layman do something like this that's so far removed from true, yet you can see some of that come through, and it's really great. However, because Layman endorses underage drinking, clearly, I mean, there is one tweet about it, and there's no such thing as context, we're just gonna have to, nix this book. Oh, and then there's Green Arrow, where we get to see him come back to the city after the events of the Outsider War and see that things have gone to hell. And it's crazy to see him take on some villains, be like, these C-listers, then they're just like, but working together. And things just build quickly, and it's fairly exciting, though there is something a little weird about the fact that there's a lot of stuff playing in from Green Arrow's past. I'm like, how many years are there supposed to be of this Green Arrow continuity now? Because it seems like he's 12, and he has about 24 years of continuity that they're technically touching on. It's a little bizarre, but it's still really interesting, so I mean, I'm not loving the book, but I'm still really enjoying it, and the art is still phenomenal. However, I heard some rumors that Jeff Lemire might be using this as a comic to endorse his sadistic hunting practices that go beyond just taking down the animal, but actually torturing them with arrows, and so, we're just going to have to nix this to be morally pure. Oh my god. So then there's Future's End, where we get to see the disparaging parts of Firestorm split apart, and that sort of, at least that chunk of the story is finally actually wrapped up, so we're 5 issues and something actually came to fruition, though there's going to be complications later, which is really interesting. We're seeing little drips of the build-up and no Batman Beyond to be found, which is interesting. However, I heard once Keith Giffen was walking in to the men's room, and there were 2 men here, but there was also a block and then a urinal over here, but instead he broke protocol and went here, so we're just gonna have to drop this one because you can't support that kind of inhumane action. Turtles, as ever, was amazing, and we get to see an interesting play with Metalhead, and for you Turtle fans out there, nobody. This was a fun issue, but this is the issue that I could totally see that if you are not a longtime Turtles fan, there were moments in this comic that would just make 0 sense to you. But there are a couple frames here or there, and for the most part it works within itself, so yeah, it's some straight up fan service, but screw you, I love this book. But I heard once Tom Waltz littered, and as we all know, turtles are eco-warriors, and whereas it might seem like a really small thing, because he's going against the message of what he's actually working on, I'm just going to have to, I heard one time Sean Murphy punched a bear in the face and knocked it out, which might seem really cool if we were living in the days of Teddy Roosevelt, but in today's enlightened society, we're just not going to stand for that sort of animal abuse. Okay, so let's just cut to the case. Barbieri used to sell illegal marijuana, and him and his partners wanted to try to incorporate a different kind of, process. So what they did to attract the locals where they were is they took pages of Mein Kampf and then rolled their product in that, which you'd think would be the antithesis of what you'd want from KKK members, but they felt like they were imbibing the good book, if you will. And so as things progressed, the heat on them came a bit hotter as this money came to grow, because when you're selling to that large of a body that regularly, it's actually more the level of weed that you can produce than the amount that you can sell that's going to limit your factor. And when you're associating with people like that, the police come down on you a little faster. And so in a sting operation, Barbieri happened to get pinched early, which tended to actually work out for him because he was able to rat out his partners beforehand. And in doing so, he was actually able to be there at the pinch and be excused from it because he was able to get everyone else in the ring and everyone else through this hate group. And through that, he was able to make off with the last earnings. And that's actually what funded Five Ghosts, and not really the Kickstarter, which was really a front to just make it seem like this was a legitimate starting place. And discovering all of that, I mean, can you honestly read this in good conscience anymore? I mean, Social Warrior the Thimble! All I'm trying to say here, guys, and I know what you're thinking. Douchebag, the rule of comedy is in threes. Hold on. I'm just saying that when you break it down, the books are the books, and these things are more than just one creative outlet. There's people working on these things, and there's not a single book that's really the mindchild and just the pure outlet of one creator. So let's try to stick to the books and not try to judge the creators on such a high moral standard that, frankly, people who we should be holding to that account, we do. I mean, like, a lot of these people did stuff and then made a mistake and then got over it. And whether or not that's questionable or not is, you know, whatever. Look, Obama voted against gay marriage, but people don't seem to hold that against him now. Like, people grow, people change, and sometimes the past really is the past. And sometimes people are douchebags, and because of that, they actually are more creative and interesting people. We may not like them as people, but as creators, we can. So, comics, everybody!